Welcome to this webinar, which is centered of managed print services security. So first of all, let's go very quickly through the agenda of this webinar. We will talk mainly about which are the new security challenges and how to address them, and we will cover several points regarding data security, infrastructure security, and of course device security. The main point for this session is to make some clarity and have some bring to you some information on what we call the print security challenge. So we all know that security is becoming a top concern for any business of any size, because it doesn't affect only financial performances, but it may also impact deeply on the reputation of a company. And COVID has also accelerated this process because more aggressive threats have appeared on the market, and it's more and more difficult for companies to build the needed defenses. So every company needs to have a viable security strategy, and we think that this has to be addressed with working together with trusted service providers. Companies like QRX, in this case, who can demonstrate experience and apply methodologies and help customers to create policies and use tools, certified tools, which are compliant to worldwide recognized security standards. So in this meeting, we will discuss all this, and we will try to ensure to help you understand how to ensure that your print environment does not fall short of the security features that are common for the IT infrastructure, both for in-offices workers and for remote workers. Very quickly, who am I to talk about this? I've been the last almost 2 decades in working in the printer business. Last 11 years, I've been CEO of MPS Monitor, which is a worldwide leader in remote monitoring and management of printers. And I'm very lucky because I can dedicate some of my time to very, very interesting technology trends like the IoT and BI and analytics, and also, of course, cybersecurity and data protection. Very quickly, I will give you some information regarding MPS Monitor. This is not a product presentation. We will discuss about your environment and your security challenges, but I want to make clear that MPS Monitor, why I'm here to talk about this, and who is MPS Monitor. MPS Monitor is a remote monitoring platform which manages almost 1 million printers worldwide. And we provide, so we have a very wide footprint on the worldwide print industry because we get a huge amount of data every day from the field. So, and of course, as we have so many customers and so many partners with which we work, security, of course, is a top concern for us because we have a big impact on our customers. But it's also an excellent point of view to understand what happens in customers and how to drive change towards a more secure environment. I wish to spend also a few seconds, not more, to explain what QRX does with MPS Monitor. Basically, MPS Monitor is useful to monitor and manage device remotely and to optimize and make and perform proactive consumable managements. So to provide consumables exactly when they are needed into each customers and for each device. And one of the most basic functionalities is to get accurate and automatic meter reading from devices so that the invoicing of pages and of contracts is fully automated and very reliable. But also, in regard specifically of security, MPS Monitor is also able to perform a remote remediation of configuration problems on some kind of devices, and also to run security assessments and policy management. So it's basically a system that QRX uses to streamline operational processes to ensure a better service to you, but also it can also be used to make your print environment more secure. Why should you care about print security? Well, the analysts, in this case Quocirca, say that have run some researches on this, and I have found that it's very common for organizations to have data losses due to insecure printing practices, more than what we could expect. But also on the other side, they have also found that IT decision makers like you very often turn to managed service providers for print security advice. What we think is that there is an important correlation between providing managed print services and keeping the printer fleet secure. And this is exactly what we are going to discuss. There are some critical factors which affect print security. One of the main is that we see this all the time when we monitor the customer's fleet. We discover that there are lots and lots of very old devices and not updated devices. And this is a problem in itself. Printers often can stay and print, and who cares if the printer is printing for many years, and often they are not updated also. And we all know that not updated devices are one of the most dangerous things. We will see this later. But also not having security policies. We see lots of customers who don't have security policies on print processes and on print devices. To manage the fleet and to manage all the processes related to print, of course, you and your managed print service provider need to use management tools and applications, and these applications need to very often may not have the needed security profile, and may not have the needed compliance with the data protection regulations and security standards. Also, it's very common, as long as print management applications are used, that the integration with the company identity standard is not complete. And this is a challenge, of course. We will see why. And the new challenge that we will discuss in a moment is the work from home environment. So all these factors need to be addressed. In our opinion, what we think is that this print security needs a holistic approach, which means looking at all aspects with a comprehensive strategy. Of course, we need to mention what happened in the last year. Basically, what IDC found is that the number of people in the entire worldwide workforce working from home has grown from 14% of the workforce to 45%, which is a huge increase. And that means that organizations like you, which already were challenged with the print security challenges, as we said, are now also face the impact of a more broadly distributed workforce, which is more complex to manage, because there are new needs rising from this new normality. First of all, it's more important to rely on cloud applications for print management, because relying only on on-premises application becomes more challenging, more difficult from a technology and from an infrastructure point of view. So there is a clear trend towards the cloud, which is driven by the new normality. And also MPS is more interesting. It's more gives more benefits than ever, because in a more distributed environment, more fragmented environment, it's more difficult for a customer to self-manage his print fleet, his printer environment. But also from the provider point of view, there are some needs of better understanding the different needs of different businesses of different sizes, because of course a small company with few employees working from home has very different need from a large corporation. So this is a challenge and the need for the provider to be able to meet all these different needs. And finally, networks, every single employee now works which works from home, works from a zero trust networks. And that means that the attack surface is much wider, much bigger, and there are lots of devices which are less secure in the network. It's not like before, when everything was inside the corporate network. So there are many factors that have to be taken in consideration when we talk about print security. One of the most important, for sure, is data security, which means that all the sensitive business information, which are not only personally identifiable information, of course they are, but also technical information regarding the IT infrastructure, business information regarding customers and business operations, contracts and whatever. All the valuable data that you process in your companies have to be handled in a secure way. And there are laws that govern some of this information, like the PIIs, and there are standards which provide protection to managing data. In terms of laws, there are some very well-known regulation worldwide, especially the GDPR, which comes from Europe, but is some way influencing regulations also in the American territory, which is a law. So these things have to be complied with. But there are also standards. Standards are even more important, because also if they are not mandatory, they have a wider influence, because they deal with all the type of data. So for example, ISO 27001 is a very important standard which affects data security of all types of data. And the other standards which I mentioned, 27017, 18, and so on, these standards regulate the way data are managed into the cloud. So it's very, very important. These are very, very important standards to refer with. And in the US, especially in the US and Canada, another standard is even more important, which is SOC 2 from AICPA, which is a standard which ensures that the processes related to data management into a system, into a provider, into a company are very, very secure. So this is just an example. We may talk for a lot of time, but I wanted only to give you an idea of which are the main standards and understand the actions that everyone should take. So we suggest that everyone should ensure that all the actors involved in any managed print service or print management engagement follow closely all the applicable regulations and standards. This is a very important point. When we talk about comprehensive security means that all the actors should be responsible for complying with regulations and standards. And from your point of view, you should, I think that every company of a reasonable size does some kind of risk assessment, and the risk assessment should involve also the print environment, because we see that very often it doesn't happen, and it's very important to keep printers and the print environment and the print applications within the perimeter of the risk assessment. And the risk assessment has to, risks which are found in the space have to be addressed mainly through compliance. So if all the actors, as I said, if all the actors meet the main standards, the risk assessment is always very positive in terms of outcome. So let's move a little bit more on the hardware side and device security. Printers, we all know printers are quite neglected. When we talk about security, we think about firewalls, network users, and applications, corporate applications. Printers are always a little bit aside of this. And in fact, most business, what we see on the field is that many business don't have formal security policies for printing device, which leads to devices with bad configurations, known with firmwares with known vulnerabilities. The bad thing, the bad side of this, that cyber criminals are aware of this. And so they often target printers and MFPs for that reason, because they know that printers are less considered in the security profile, in the security risk assessment. So what we suggest is that the MPS provider has a role in helping the customers to manage devices also from a security perspective. So an MPS engagement is not only to predict the right volumes, to apply the right costs, and to deliver the right consumables, but also to make sure that devices are kept secure by all means, from all points of views. So I will give also some best practices on device security. First of all, firmwares. Firmwares are the most important thing when it comes to device security. You should, or your managed print provider should, make sure that all devices are running the latest firmware versions, because we all know that the latest firmware versions are generally those where the security issues and problems which always are found are generally solved. And so if it's not possible to keep all the devices always at the latest firmware versions, at least keep them aligned to a recent one which has not reported known vulnerabilities. So keep firmwares under control. And also ports on devices. We see lots and lots of devices which have lots of ports open. And why keep ports on devices open if they are not used? Also, in terms of credentials, not all the businesses use to apply credentials to the management, to the administration of devices. It's very important to avoid using standard factory credentials on printing devices. And it's also important to use strong passwords when on those devices. So basically, it's important to manage devices like users. What you do for users' accounts, you should do that also for devices. Network protocols, why keep very old protocols like IPX, SPX active, or why keep Telnet if nobody is using Telnet to access the device? These are other ports open for malicious actors. So use only the protocols which are needed, and when possible, use secure protocols. Also, in terms of managing the file system access to the device, it should be disabled by default if it's not needed. So all these things should come into a policy, and again, the role of customer and the managed service provider is to define and enforce print policies, device policy management. So ensure that the security policies for printing devices are applied in the same way in which generally are applied to all other devices. And as again, QRX and MPS Monitor can help on this very, very strongly, because there are specific features for this. There are specific tools to ensure this. It's also important to talk about infrastructure security. As I said, the new normality and the work from home is a compelling driver for using cloud applications instead of on-premises applications, and this is very good. But cloud applications are more secure than on-premises applications, because they are managed from a security point of view at a very large scale. Cloud providers of software as a service applications generally are very, very careful on security, because they serve thousands or tens of thousands of customers. But these applications are more secure if they are really, really well managed. Because, for example, and let me give you an example which is very near to what we do, data collection agents, so the agents that are installed into customers to monitor devices, and software agents which are, for example, installed to route print jobs and this kind of things, can become attack vectors. So it's really important to be aware of how the security of these components is managed, because these are things that go inside the customer network and which are connected to the outside world. But these things are not the weakest. The weakest in general in any IT environment is always the user. And so the user has to be managed very, very carefully, also in regard to the printing environment. I'm not talking about the rest of the IT, but specifically in the print infrastructure, in everything goes around printing, users have to be treated in the right way from a security point of view, especially when they are working from home, because they are working from home networks which cannot be secured. So let's have a look at the best practice in this space, in infrastructure security. First of all, when you talk to cloud providers, when you decide to install or to use cloud applications in the printing space, you should make sure that the cloud providers have the right standards and certifications. ISO 27001, SOC 2, HIPAA, the things that mean that this cloud provider has been tested, certified, and approved by an external auditor, which ensures that the policies and procedures are in place to ensure to maintain the right level of security. And also regarding users, you should prefer a single sign-on approach using your company identity system, like Active Directory or Azure Active Directory or whatever else you use as a company identity system. But this approach is much better than having one set of credentials for each system. So assuming that you use many cloud systems in your company, you may have a CRM, you may have an ERP, you may have a trouble ticketing system, you may have a print management platform, a monitoring tool like MPS Monitor. you should try to drive all the systems to a single sign-on approach using your own company identity, instead of leaving users manage the one set of credentials, personal credentials for each different system, because this is a very risky situation, because users tend to use the same password for each system, tend to use easy password rather than strong password. You know the story. So enforce strong password and two-factor authentication in any possible situation where single sign-on is not available, but use single sign-on as much as possible. Also, there are, well, in terms of user management, again, we strongly suggest, and this is something that the application needs to support, you need to create users with the minimum permissions available for the job they need to do. So use the need to know, need to use logic, which means that a user has access only to the minimal things that he or she needs to use. And of course, there are cases in which you want to extend your data, your applications, your processes to external entities like logistic partners or other type of partners. And in that case, the applications that you use should provide the ability to mask PIIs to ensure compliance with the PII's privacy regulation. So of course, all these kind of things may or may not be available and may or may not be applicable to all the systems that you use in the print environment. But it's important to have a sort of view of which are the main guidelines that we suggest. And of course, last but not least, you should consider that everything is connected to a home network is insecure by definition. That means having a zero trust approach for home workers. So the last point of the picture in our holistic approach is how to migrate on-premises print servers to the cloud. Because as we said at the beginning, the analysts think that people will continue working from outside the office, from home or from other places. And so in a hybrid workplace scenario, protecting printing endpoints in both the home and the office environment, it's very important, because otherwise you have users which print from and to not protected devices. And this is very difficult to do with on-premises print servers, while using technologies like the brand new Microsoft 365 Universal Print technology, which by the way was presented and released for general availability just yesterday at the Microsoft Ignite conference. This technology allows migrating on-premises print servers to the Azure cloud, which means in ensuring that a much higher level of security can be achieved on printing from anywhere to anywhere, printing from any device within or outside the corporate network, to any printer inside or outside the network. Because every print job goes from the PC or from the device to the cloud, and from the cloud goes back to the printer, wherever the printer is, in a fully secure way. And Microsoft ensures that jobs are stored and processed on very secure data stores, which are the Azure data stores, which are the same data stores and the same structures which manage Exchange Online, Office Online, and the OneDrive. Everything you do with the Microsoft 365 goes on the same infrastructure, and you can move your print jobs to the same cloud with the same data flows, with the same level of security. This can be done with MPS Monitor also, because MPS Monitor has been one of the first cloud application for the print world to integrate Microsoft 365 Universal Print inside the monitoring, the remote monitoring and management platform. So we are at the end of the presentation, and we have time for questions if there are. I want to give you some recap of what I said. We have said that security in managed print services is mandatory. It cannot be avoided. It's not optional. It's something that everyone should worry about. Everyone means you as customers, service providers like QRX, us as technology vendors and platform providers and software as a service providers, especially us, because we are more pervasive in this world, in the printing world. But everyone has to care about security in MPS. And this does not involve a single component. It doesn't mean having the printers with the firmware updated with the latest firmware, or having single sign-on for the users. All these things are important, and all these things collaborate to have a 360 degrees holistic view of the printing environment in a secure way. But of course, the role of your provider, of QRX in this case, is pivotal, because it has to ensure that the right skills, the right policies, the right tools and best practices are in place to ensure all this. It's not something that can be done by a single point of view. It is a collective work. This is really important, because as we see it, and as all the analysts see it, the future is full of unexpected threats. We couldn't expect what has come in the last few months. Like we cannot do that for our life. Also, we cannot do that for our security, IT security. And there are lots of new challenges coming on this. So it's our responsibility as an industry to transform these challenges and risks in new opportunities, to make sure that these challenges are useful for us to create more long-term and more profitable relationships between customers and providers. Thanks very much to everyone, and bye-bye.